Welcome to MedShark Insider with Bill Fukui, your expert host on all things medical marketing and SEO.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of MedShark Insider. Today I have a long time, and I mean, I've been in the digital marketing space for medical practices for the better part of 25 years. Even before Google was in its beta, was out of its beta stage. One of the people I've known the longest in this space, and we actually were co-workers at a previous agency, and he's going to bring some unique perspective that we're going to talk about, mainly social media today, but also as it affects SEO and your other, I don't think anything's in a silo anymore these days. But let me go ahead and introduce our guest today, Jonathan Fashbaugh, who is the president of Pro Impressions Marketing. Welcome, Jonathan.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Bill. It's a great time to talk with you anytime, and this is all stuff that I'm really passionate about. You'll probably have to, we'll come up with a signal where you tell me, hey, shut up for a minute so I can
talk. No. The good news with this is there's no time limit, but it's more mainly, I want to make sure that our audience really gets a lot of value and a lot of information or things that they can actually do after, watching the program today, that they can actually walk away with stuff and I'm going to be doing these things. I mean, that's really the intent here, is to provide value. And as long as we're continuing to add value, I will never cut you off, man.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I'm right with you there. Let's just figure out how we can help everyone who's watching. I mean, that's the kind of mission of my career in dental marketing, is to be a positive presence in the dental community and form lasting relationships. And this is just totally emblematic of that. You and I connecting after 10 plus years, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been in touch in between there, but let's see what we can do to get some good information out there.
That sounds great, Jonathan. So one of the things that when I talk to practices and they're wanting us to do assessments, and you hear assessments in digital marketing all the time. We'll do an assessment. Practices don't really know when they're looking at assessing their own work. Sometimes they're a little too close to it. What is it that you look for when you're talking to a new practice, or a practice that says, hey, Jonathan, take a look at my stuff. Tell me what you think. When you're looking at their social media, their Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, what is it that you're looking for? What specifically, if you can put it, number them off, what would be the things that you want to make sure that they're addressing?
I guess, first of all, I want to just see if there's any life there, any activity whatsoever.
Surprisingly,
what profiles do they even have? Okay. When was the last time that they published anything there? But I really do take kind of a holistic triage to their entire presence to just see where do they need the most help, and then if that pain point is big enough to where it really shows that there's a severe lack of support there or mismanagement, I'm definitely going to bring that to their attention. But I want to just make sure that, above all, that it's all working together to be successul. But once I kind of, if I let's just hypothetically say that, okay, social media really is where they struggle the most, then I'd be looking for just the uniformity of the posts, how personal they are, how much engagement they're getting. Mm-hmm. Do they have a variety of post types? There are just so many ways that social media is managed out there. You can always kind of tell a do-it-yourselfer.
Right.
If the posts just kind of are helter-skelter. But the number one positive that I look for is personal involvement. How actually social are these posts? Because there's a lot of companies out there that all they do is put out this kind of canned content and that's just not going to truly make their profiles social.
Right. Hey, one of the things that you kind of mentioned was that they're actually engaged, that they're participating in this. How much, when a practice says, well, I don't know how much I should be doing, or there's always a diminishing return on investment of time that goes into any kind of, marketing or any kind of work. What would you say, how much time does a practice need to devote to its social activities when it comes to social media? And maybe it's even in the form of how many posts they need to be doing, how frequent. I mean, give us some gauge. What should a practice be looking at in terms of, I need to invest more into this? How am I going to measure that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's a lot of great data to support strong opinions on one end or the other, especially for a dental office, because you can get, like pillars of the social media kind of community like Hootsuite will give you numbers like that and advocate for posting all the time. And like I was at a Facebook event, and they were trying to get you to post multiple times a day, and I'm thinking,
wow, that's a lot.
Work for dental offices.
Yeah.
A dental office isn't going to be able to, first of all, do that, and second of all, what patient is going to want to hear from their dentist multiple times a day?
Right.
And then there's the whole reality check of what is possible in the realm of organic visibility, where you're not paying to get out there.
It's a good point.
Can you really move the needle as a dental practice to break through and earn a spot in someone's news feed? And if you kind of think of the followers of people in terms of like a tree or kind of a fractal pattern going out, how far out can you really ripple organically from you, your team, your team's family, your family? You might be able to reach that kind of first tier organically, but out there beyond that, where you're really trying to reach to get new patients, how far out can you really get organically? And so to me, my thought process is not very far. I mean, Facebook and Instagram especially have really done a lot to make sure that their stock goes up and that they're making money. And so, that has to factor in. Having said that, I do think that Google does look at, I know that Google indexes Facebook pages. And if you're doing it right, when you're putting out content, you are putting it out on multiple platforms, and Google notices that activity, and things notice it too. And so I think you're right. There is some point of diminishing returns in terms of frequency, but it's rare that that's the problem.
Okay.
Most of the time, the offices are not struggling with, we've just got so much content, and we're afraid. I do hear from people saying they're afraid that they would annoy people, but I'm like, well, let's push that envelope. I would love to hear complaints, because that means someone's seeing your stuff.
Well, that's actually a good point.
It's a lot like, if you study email marketing, the piece that people are always so afraid of is I'm gonna get unsubscribes, and if you really kind of dig into it, the group, in fact, they're almost chasing unsubscribes, because that's like, either you're going to buy from me or you're going to unsubscribe. It's highly unlikely that you're just going to sit there.
Yeah.
I don't really want you dead in the funnel. I want you moving, and I think social media can be viewed in a similar light. Obviously, you want a fan for life, but really you want fans who become patients, and then you develop a relationship with them from there.
Yeah. Good point. I think a lot of practices are maybe a little overcautious to the point where they miss opportunities simply because they're assuming too much. They assume too much.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, they almost kind of talk themselves out of, doing more or doing things, or, maybe
Justifying
taking
activity.
risks, doing a little risk taking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with social media, part of it is the ones that are really getting a lot of, activity, business, building a very large community, online community, digital community. They are taking some risks. They are doing some things that are, kind of out of the box, and, stuff like that. So when it comes to the kind of posting that you're recommending, you're saying if we can get practices to do more personalized types of stuff, give me an idea of what you would say. Yeah, we can do pictures, but where does, the difference, say, between just pictures of the staff, or video production? Give us an idea of what kind of content. And I think visual content is always what's getting the most engagement, that, people are engaged, liking, sharing, doing all that kind of stuff with. Give us some examples as to where in the priority should practices be doing those types of things, and give us some ideas, maybe what's possible in terms of those kinds of things that they haven't done already.
I think that's going to vary a little bit from one office to the next.
Okay.
And especially dependent kind of on the leadership within the office. Because if you have a younger doctor who totally gets social media and can kind of lead the charge, it's a little bit easier to make this happen in that practice.
No question.
Especially since, there's the whole birds of a feather flock together phenomenon. They're going to tend to hire people that are kind of like them. And so the culture of that practice is going to be much more conducive to social media activity than an older doctor who's like, my phone doesn't even have apps. It dials a number, that kind of thing, where they don't understand it. They don't care about it. They're almost averse to even talking about it. They think it's kind of stupid, I've had to work with doctors like that, and I'm glad to help them. But it definitely makes it difficult because they are the leaders in their practice, and their team can pick up on whether or not it's a priority for doctor. And if doctor is going to truly appreciate the work that I put into this versus, staying on top of other priorities that he says are equally important, well, that's, social media is going to fall by the wayside. So in certain circumstances like that, I try to give them some easy wins, some instruction that, kind of spoons feed them some post ideas, and really even offer, hey, if you can just send me pictures, I don't want you to post. You just be the photographer since I can't be there. Just send me pictures. Make sure you're sending me pictures, if you can, once a week at least, or something like that. Then we can take those and run with it to make their posts that we're generating just a little bit more human and personal. That in the end is probably enough for most practices to be successful, but they have to make those pictures a priority. Video is great, but if it's not done well, then most of the time we can't even use it. If it's dark and dingy looking, if they didn't pay attention to, what the background looks like, and the audio is a big problem too. If we can't even hear what they're saying, it breaks my heart to tell a client, so you followed directions, you sent me something, but I can't do anything with it because I don't want them to not try again. But yeah, I mean, that's just my number one thing is we can always kind of hone in on the content of what you send me, but let's just focus initially on you sending stuff and getting into the habit of that. Where can we fit that in the flow of the practice to make sure that this gets done? For a while, we were calling kind of our point person in the practice their social media czar. Who's going to lead the charge? You've got to appoint one person that you are going to work with Jonathan and his team, and you're going to send them stuff when they need it, and they're going to hound you, and you're going to be, getting them things. I think that works, but again, it just depends on the practice whether or not they can commit to that, or in some cases everyone wants to be involved, and then you've got the outfielders. I got it,
Yeah.
and no one gets it.
What you kind of mentioned the practices that really embrace this, the younger providers. I see this not only in dentistry but plastic surgery, most medical, that we're targeting more of the elective fee-for-service types of treatments and products, technology, and I do find that the high growth practices many times are those younger providers, simply because they're embracing this whole concept. I think it's more than just, do you do social media? It's embracing the concept of building a relationship. There was a time when it was just, build it and they will come, or I'm such a good dentist that everybody knows who I am, and everybody comes to me anyway. This whole deal of social media has kind of changed how consumers buy professional services and who they're going to buy it from. One of the things that we found when we were developing even websites, when we do heat mapping, it was almost without exception the most clicked elements on a page many times didn't matter where the icons were. It was the social media icons. They were always one of the most clicked items on the page, even if it was down in the footer. I've seen some designs where they kind of bury it down in the footer of the page, as opposed to some of them have it very high in the banners, or high on the page. Didn't matter where it was getting lots of clicks. And I got I've always, over the course of time, as I started to see more and more of that consumers are taking on a more relationship focused. They want to know who you are on a deeper level than just kind of a website, in the almost sterile content. It's almost clinical content or brochure kind of content on a website. And I want to see how you live. I want to see who you are, who your people are, things like that. And I think those are the kinds of things that, yes, you want to grow your social media audience, but I think it also works synergistically with the website. That audience, if they're on my website, man, that is the best audience to start developing a rapport and connection with, is the people that visit my site and are wanting to learn more about us and what happens in our practice, who we are as people, more so than as, I'm a licensed dentist or a orthodontist or endodontist, whatever it is. They want to know who you are on a more personal level. So I think the content that you're talking about, I think it absolutely lends itself to that kind of, building a connection. I even say even website designs today almost have to have maybe a social media kind of slant to it, because that's what we live in, a social world online today, is, especially with, we're even doing Zoom today, which we never did before, hardly ever, so I think this engagement socially, visually, I think it's, so practices that are doing a lot of this stuff and trying to help you support the social media marketing for their practice, how do they, I would say most of them are not really good about being organized. It's almost kind of a fly by the seat of your pants. It happens when it happens. Do you have any way of helping practices? What do you do to the practice that says, I can only talk about this dentistry and this stuff so much? What do you do to help those kinds of practices kind of stay engaged with it?
Well, so I mentioned the social medias we always ask on the front end of the relationship, who's going to be in charge of this? Who can we connect with on that? We always make sure we get an email address with them. And then we send out an email blast once a month with post ideas. They're actually the same post ideas that anyone can have access to on our website. We've got a page called #StaySocial on the website. But we email out to all of our clients that are engaging with us for social media services. And we email ideally both the doctor and then the point person in the practice, or if there's multiple people, we can send it to however many.
Right.
But the email is also just called Stay Social. And so it's got a list of post ideas for the month. And generally some of those ideas are dual purpose, not dual purpose, but like if there's a holiday coming up, we mentioned that, but if it's a holiday that might be, like if it's a religious holiday and not every dentist is going to want to post something about that, we'll have a backup idea. So
right.
many times there's, 5 or 6 ideas on that list of topics. And then we also give kudos to our clients who have either followed those ideas or done something great on their own. And so we actually kind of screenshot that and do just like a 1 or 2 sentence analysis, kind of explaining what we see that they did that worked really well. So that in addition to our ideas, the dentist can see what other practices are doing.
Yeah.
Sometimes they know that because they are those young doctors that are engaged in social media themselves.
Yeah.
They're seeing what their competitors are doing. They're seeing what their kind of mentors are doing, or kind of the icons in dentistry that they like to follow, what they're doing, and that's great. Those people probably don't even need to get our emails because they have enough ideas on their own. But the idea behind the Stay Social campaign is to just take away the excuse of the blank canvas kind of, I don't know what to post. I mean, I don't have time to think about this and figure it out. We just want to kind of spoon feed them almost a to-do list of just follow these post ideas and you've got something going on.
Yeah.
And you know what, that's a note to the frequency too, Bill, that you asked about. I mean, those people that are clicking on the icons on the website, they see all of it. It doesn't matter. And so I think it can be more impressive to the user that clicks to a dentist social profile if they see that, oh, there's always something going on here. These guys are really on top of it. And it may not be a one-to-one, oh, they do such a great job on their social media, so they must also do a great job in dentistry. That's probably not the case. But I think they can appreciate themselves if they're at all active in social media, that it kind of takes some doing to figure out what am I going to post that makes me interesting, and so I think there's a subliminal impact. We always also advocate sharing reviews or testimonials. And I've had practices say that someone clicked on their website, clicked to Facebook and saw a review, and they came in and said, I came in because I saw the great reviews on your Facebook page, and it's a full mouth case that comes through the door. It's hard to argue with that like not every patient is going to interact with it like that, but why not put that hook in the water?
No, you are absolutely, and I think the idea of multi-channel, how they all work together, like when you're saying the website, they go to social media, they look at reviews. So you really can't look at, even your social media, it's not in a silo. Everything has to be somewhat integrated. So even, I recommend to practices, if they are doing SEO and say they're blogging, it absolutely makes a lot of sense to promote that blog content you spent money and time to create. Google doesn't see a lot of value in that content if nobody ever sees it. So it's about promoting that content too. So including it into your newsfeed or promoting it in even some of the boosted stuff, but adding value, good content, adding value, not sales or promotional things, but really high value content kind of stuff. I think it adds a lot. And I think when you're talking about, when they visit this and do they equate, that they're posting and they're highly engaged with their patients, that they do good dentistry, maybe not. But what I do think is that people don't always choose their dentist based on that they feel like they're the best dentist, especially if they don't know them. If it's a non-branded or non-bonded patient coming to your practice that doesn't know you from Adam or any
Right.
dentist, I think that I call it the likability factor. It's they're going to end up doing business and choosing a dentist, or at least giving them a shot at earning the business based on how much they like you. Is there something about you or your practice or your people or your environment in general? Is there something about you that I like? And I think that applies to your social media, that applies to your website, that applies to your reviews, all of those platforms. It is trying to make people like you. I think there is a lot of truth to that. I think it's a subliminal, like you said, it's very subliminal.
Yeah, and I think it also ties into, it being a relationship building. Do I feel like this person gets me as the patient too? They've got to be able to see themselves in your practice and get some semblance of the impression that you understand their problem, or that you care about their problem, that you've helped other people that have their problem. And so, the old school style of, taking pictures of the office environment to just look like it's so, clean and professional. And they've got, just the headshot of the doctor with all these curriculum vitae type items on there. That's definitely not going to cut it these days, because of the likability is not there. And there's going to be some people that will be attracted to that. But kind of going back to your assessment question, I think all of these factors create kind of like a spider web. Mm-hmm. And if we picture a spider web here, and we've got a fly that's caught right here, you'd be tempted to say, well, these strands are pulling their weight. The rest of these aren't doing anything. Well, if you don't have the rest of these strands, you don't have a web. You're not catching anything.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the challenge in marketing, is to help the doctor understand that all of these strands are necessary and need to be tended to in order to make sure that we've got a good system that's going to capture the people that do maybe appreciate what your office looks like inside, or really do care about your authority and expertise based on what you've done in your career. Maybe really like before and after photos, or really love that your website loaded quickly on their phone. All of these things pull together, and social media is definitely important because it connects a lot of those pieces. Mm-hmm. And so it's really hard to get the doctor to understand that and then invest in all of that. But social media, I think, has the advantage of being also a little more accessible, and it can get some team buy-in too, because it's more visible, and there's more appreciation for kind of the tangible or deliverable aspect of it, where it's like, look what we did,
Right. No, and the other thing that I think practices overlook is the spirit of social media. It's not advertising. A lot of practices look at social media. Oh, I need to get leads from this. I need to get, traffic. I need to get all these measurements that we always equate to advertising and marketing. Where I think the practices that are highly successful integrate more than just, I just want to get more consumers. I just want more consumers. I think they overlook one of the biggest audiences, a professional audience, getting their colleagues, getting their other dental friends. And I think the dental community is very unique compared to, say, the plastic surgeon or some of these other medical specialties. I generally tend to say they're more competitive in that sense. I think there are a bunch of mavericks out there, and it's about eat what you kill kind of stuff. dental, in fact, I kind of mentioned to you, there's a group out in Seattle, the Seattle Study Club. Mike Gergen kind of turned me on to it. Great resource that helps practices develop their own local study clubs and study groups amongst other dentists in the marketplace. And that's unique amongst most, professional services. You don't have a study club of plastic surgeons getting together on how to do better business or how to treat or how to deal with certain business issues. They're kind of on their own. Dentists are unique in the sense that they do kind of, it's a collaborative spirit. And I think leveraging those relationships too, because who would, check out stuff on a dental website or a dental social media or dental blogs, dental content? It's other dentists, and those are great signals to, for engagement, whether it's Google, whether it's your Facebook audience, to see that you are an authority. You use the word authority. And absolutely, you need to be also engaging with your professional audience as well. I think that's one of the most overlooked areas that practices. Oh, I just want to get patients and consumers. I think they overlooked really kind of the authority thing that you're talking about. How does authority, when you're saying, build your authority, I always hear that, social media has no impact or it does impact your SEO results. A lot of practices started doing social media simply because they were told by their SEO company that it helps. What's your take on, does it help? How does it help? Does it not help? What's your take on that?
I think it's obviously been a moving target from the beginning. Because I was definitely one of those people who encouraged a lot of dentists to start involving themselves in social media, because we started to realize that Google was paying attention to what was on those pages. And of course, they're never going to completely show their hand. But I think it goes to just, what does a highly successful expert in any field have? They typically have a following, and they've got something to say. Google wants to show the very best services out there in their results, period. And so the very best, I think you just always kind of think about, well, what were they going to be likely to do, and how can I do the same thing? Because hopefully the doctors watching this believe that they're the best in their area anyway, and if you're not, go after that first and foremost, become the best in your area, because that's what Google wants. Right. Google doesn't want someone who's just kind of coasting. And that's tough, because I want to help every dentist out there that I can. But if you're really struggling as a professional and people don't like you and you've got lawsuits against you and negative reviews left, right, and center, I'm sorry, but these days there's very little I can do to help you. I mean, we can buy ads, but even those, I really feel like Google's doing a lot. They had this algorithm update called BERT, where they're really trying to push the envelope of their artificial intelligence and language processing to kind of understand offline what people think about you. And so, I mean, when it comes to how does social media influence your, visibility overall, I think it's an opportunity to showcase that you have a lot to offer and a lot of people like what you have to say. And I guess that also kind of adds some value to some of the posts that maybe our dentists might think of as kind of canned, where it's, like, did you know X percentage of people have oral cancer, and if caught early can be treated easily, or something like that. Right. I'm just off the top of my head. Someone might say, well, that's not very personal, that's not social, But I think the cool thing about that is it's informing your followers, but it's also putting something in your feed that your other dentist professionals, like you're saying, can easily click that share button and put it out into their feeds,
Mhm.
which probably isn't going to directly get you patients. But Facebook and Google just saw that someone else who's an expert in your field shared your content. That, you're not going to get a lot of those, but those are nice little wins that, you're not going to pick up if you're not putting out that kind of content.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is tough though, because it's hard to quantify. There is no metric that we can really point to of, Google Authority Index or something where you've got a number that you can tie to it.
Right.
You just really have to put your best foot forward out there and kind of not be afraid of going out there and telling that story, because there's very few people who are going to do it for you.
Well, I think, you're right. There is no actual measurement in terms of how much, ranking, domain authority that adds to your, when you do those types of things. But I think the takeaway as it relates to your social media is, number one, Google is looking more at user signals. User signals is becoming a bigger and bigger
Yeah.
part of its algorithm. And user signals, let's face it, your user signals are usually better with people that know you, have a relationship with you, and have some level of trust in you. So your user signals are usually stronger with that audience and building up that audience. And then it's also, we've heard in SEO that Google loves brands. Google loves brands. Okay. And I think a quote branded audience, I think that's important. A lot of people think of brands as being, oh, I've got to be McDonald's or Nike, or, those are very recognizable consumer brands, but you can be very niche in your brand too. Niche branding is real. For example, I use, as you know, I'm a big golfer and fisherman. I love that kind of stuff. But when I talk to my wife and I mention, Shrixon or something, she has no idea what that is. But to a golfer and that golfing audience, they know exactly what I'm talking about. Or if I talk about, this particular driver or this particular thing, those branded products, they are very recognizable to the right audience. So it's also building a brand to a niche audience, not necessarily to the general consumers. Start looking at brands as being your community, branding yourself to a local audience, to people that have interest in what you do, and building a relationship with you. I think that, there's no metric or some software that measures the value of that in terms of your SEO. But I think philosophically speaking, we know those things impact results. We know that Google's looking for those kinds of things, especially when it comes to professional service providers that Google puts extra responsibility on to become an expert, an authority, and to be trustworthy, to eat, your money, your life kind of,
Yep.
responsibilities for dental or medical providers. I mean, so you really have to be, like you're saying, you got to be a better dentist. You got to be a better surgeon. Hate to say it, but that's what Google's wanting.
Yep. Yeah, and be willing to put yourself out there, because I also know a lot of dentists that are just phenomenal dentists, but personality wise, they're
Yeah.
not ones who are going to run out and try to get in front of a news camera. They're just like, I pride myself in the quality of service, and my patients love me. And I'm like, that is fantastic. I'm not sure how well I can help you grow that, just because, if we can't get some buzz about you, then really what's left to us are ads. The organic visibility of any website right now is so volatile, that we know what to do from an SEO standpoint, and that's just make it stupid simple for Google to find and understand all the quality content you have on your website. And by the way, make sure your website is all quality content. There is no magic bullet anymore from an SEO standpoint. And from there, it's what do other people think about you, you know? So yeah, I mean, we've got to help our clients get the word out about how fantastic they are. But yeah, they definitely have to be willing to drink the water once we lead them to it.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think just offering them tools like the Stay Social tools helps them feel like this is not an overwhelming task, or they're czars in the practice,
Right.
that it's not an overwhelming task. One of the things that I do encourage practices to do to kind of, it makes it fun and to be more creative is there are, resources online. And it's as simple as Pinterest. There are Pinterest pages. A good one would be like Pinterest.com. It's I think it's called Social Practice /Social Practice, and they've got, and it's a dental related Pinterest page, and they've got images and ideas, graphics, just creative, and it's endless, just tons of different stuff that they can go, ooh, we do that. We should do something like, but because it makes it very visual. Pinterest, I think, is a great tool to kind of stimulate ideas. And they actually, I think in Social Practice, they actually have a section that is just for dentists. And that is where I would, maybe direct practices, but I think you can even just Google it. Google's great about indexing lots of stuff. But just finding things to make this more fun, to be more creative, and not necessarily, always have to be, we're a dental practice, we're a medical practice. People are looking for a little more fun.
Oh, sports teams, showing your athletic pride. I think it's great engagement. Birthdays. I mean, not all posts all your posts should not be ads. They definitely need to show the human side. One thing that I thought about just now, though, is, in terms of predictability, making sure that it happens, I would highly advocate putting social media in the stand-up meetings that most of the most successful offices I know have at least a weekly, if not a daily meeting where they stand up and say, okay, this is what we've got going on.
Yeah.
So line item in there, social media and reviews,
that's
talking
a great
about
idea.
what you got going on. So who's going to put a social post out there this week, or you're even reviewing, hey, we did this social post and this is how many likes we got, or this is what, Annie did on social media. Doesn't this look great? To just make it a part of the process for the practice. It's going to make it much more repeatable.
I love that concept because it kind of uses peer pressure to some degree to start thinking, if that in our morning huddle, we're going to be, doctor's going to be asking, or practice, manager is going to be asking, who's got ideas? Who's going to be doing this? Or who's got another good idea? Well, we all know that staff want to, they want to make an impact. They want to be the go-to person that has all the creative ideas. And putting that out there where, they know, so they're looking around the practice. They're seeing things that they never would have showed up on their radar. Now they're going, ooh, that would make for a good post, or that would be a great idea. It's just kind of getting that mental thought, but unless there's some consistency in that they're being held somewhat accountable for identifying those opportunities, I think that's a great idea. It
forms a mental habit of looking for those opportunities too. So, I mean, the first few times could be a little difficult, but those difficult things are where the money is, man. I mean, you got to push through that and dig in, and then all of a sudden, this is just how we do things, and it happens, and that's where you win in the long run.
Yeah, and then you're going to get more eyeballs and more people's heads around this, as opposed to just your one czar. That's their responsibility. No, it's everybody's. It's getting the whole practice involved with this and holding them accountable to sharing what it is that they're doing. Their practice with the rest of the world. It's not just one person's responsibility. It's all of ours.
Yeah, you got one team member pulling the other one in and saying, I don't know how to do this, but we got to get a picture of this situation happening here, because this will work great for social media. Absolutely.
I think
that collaboration is possible.
I think that kind of stuff is where the practices that really kind of shoot through the top, they have a team that does that. It's not just their social media agency, or even a really good czar. It's having a more collaborative spirit. And how do you cultivate that in a practice?
And rewarding it as the doctor too,
that's a great
that's
idea.
Just going to help, because if I'm the main assistant, and I know we're kind of short on time here, but if I'm the main assistant and I'm being told by the doctor that I have these 3 priorities, and also make my social media happen. I hate to beat that dead horse, but I've heard that again and again from the team. Doctor tells me that I'm supposed to do this, but I've got 5 other fires to put out. And the attitude is that kind of a resentment of having this other thing on the plate. So the doctor, I think, by putting in the huddle, you're also making room for it to a certain extent to say, okay, this is time we're devoting to talking about this, and we are going to measure it, and therefore probably it's going to factor into maybe not direct compensation, but this is how we win.
Yeah, I think that's great. Well, Jonathan, great ideas, great stuff. Love having conversations with you. There's never a time where I don't walk away with something. There's always something new, and I always love that about you. But why don't you do me a favor and just kind of, for the people that are watching, if there's an interest in looking at the Stay Social or other things, how can they get a hold of you?
So proimpressionsgroup.com is the website. On there, under the What We Do categories, that's where you can find the Stay Social page. And then, if they need help beyond that, you can schedule a consultation right on there. But yeah, that's going to be the easiest thing for anyone to remember. proimpressionsgroup.com.
Super. Hey, Jonathan, thank you again for all your time today and sharing all these great ideas. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thanks.
Okay. Take care, my friend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for the MedShark Insider with Bill Fukui. Join us next week for another dive into all things medical marketing. All episodes can be streamed at www.medsharkdigital.com/MedShark-Insider.